when the doorbell rings and a package arrives. Beware of what you've truly ordered, for sometimes greed and curiosity don't bring gifts, they deliver nightmares. And once the delivery is complete, there's no return, no refund, only fear. The evening was peaceful in the family's small flat. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room, chatting and laughing while the television played in the background. Suddenly, the screen flickered, and an unusual advertisement forced itself onto the channel. A glowing banner appeared. Shopify, exclusive mega deal. Bright images of watches, dresses, and cosmetics rotated across the screen. The family leaned closer, their curiosity growing. It felt odd, too sudden, too perfectly timed. But the excitement of such tempting offers pushed away suspicion. The children whispered eagerly about what to order, while the parents exchanged thoughtful glances. The deal seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, impossible to ignore. None of them noticed that the TV reflection held a faint, shadowy figure smiling from behind them, as though watching their every reaction with amusement. After the strange promo ended, silence filled the room. The family exchanged curious looks. The father reached for the remote, flipping through other channels, but the ad seemed to have vanished, leaving no trace. "Strange," he muttered. But the mother smiled nervously. "Maybe it's fate." The children pleaded excitedly, insisting they should place an order. Soon the living room turned into a lively discussion, weighing the options like a serious family meeting. After some hesitation, they all agreed it was harmless to try. The father picked up his phone, entered the site, and placed an order for a bundle, a watch, cosmetics, and a dress. Just minutes later, his phone rang. The caller ID read Shopify delivery. He answered, but instead of a cheerful operator, a deep male voice echoed strangely, promising delivery within 7 working days. The words felt unnervingly slow, as if whispered through a hollow chamber. 1. The family gathered around the father as he pressed the phone to his ear. The voice on the other end was deep, steady, but strangely distorted, like it was passing through water. "Your order is confirmed. Expect delivery in 7 working days," it said. No background noise, no typing, no chatter. Just an empty silence after each pause, as if the speaker wasn't human at all. The father tried asking a question, but the caller only repeated 7 working days, then hung up abruptly. A chill swept through the room. The mother laughed nervously to hide her unease. "At least it's confirmed." The children, however, jumped with joy, already imagining the items they'd receive. The father shook off the uneasy feeling and reassured everyone that it was just an automated call. Still, as the night went on, he couldn't stop replaying that hollow voice in his mind, echoing like something not meant to be heard. The following morning, the family woke with a newfound excitement. The children marked a red circle on the calendar, counting down the 7 days. Each day, Anticipation grew. Talk at breakfast centered on the mysterious package. The mother discussed how she would try the cosmetics first, while the daughter dreamed about the dress. Even the father, though quieter, often checked his phone for updates, though none came. By the third day, the ad that had once flashed on their TV never reappeared, no matter how many channels they searched. By the fifth day, the family began to whisper among themselves about the strange, hollow voice. Still, the thought of new things drowned their doubts. On the seventh evening, they dressed neatly, waiting like guests, expecting a celebration. But the bell never rang. Midnight came, and still no delivery. For the first time, unease overtook their excitement. Something about this waiting didn't feel right anymore. On the eighth morning, the father's phone rang again. The caller ID was the same. Shopify delivery. The family rushed to the table as he answered on speaker. The same hollow, distorted male voice spoke. "We apologize for the delay. Your order is on its way. Expect it within 1 to 2 days." The words were followed by a faint sound, like a dragging chain scraping across stone, before the line went dead. The children clapped, relieved, but the mother exchanged a quick glance with her husband. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. He nodded, his skin pale. Despite their unease, hope was rekindled. They convinced themselves it was just a technical glitch, nothing more. That night, however, as the family gathered in the living room, a sudden flicker of lights and a distant knock echoed through the flat. Too soft to be the door, yet too loud to be ignored. That night, after the call, the family tried to sleep, but uneasiness lingered. Around 2 a.m., the mother awoke to the sound of faint whispers, like multiple voices murmuring from inside the walls. She sat up, holding her breath, trying to listen. The whispers repeated one word over and over: delivery. Delivery. Her pulse quickened. She shook her husband awake, but by then, the room had fallen into silence, leaving only the hum of the ceiling fan. "It was nothing," he mumbled, though his eyes betrayed his fear. The next morning, the children claimed they had dreamt of strange figures knocking at the door, each holding broken packages. Breakfast was quiet, everyone avoiding the topic, until suddenly the doorbell rang, sharp and clear. The family froze in place, their hearts pounding. It was only the 6th day, but the sharp ring of the doorbell echoed again, followed by a heavy knock that rattled the wooden frame. Everyone stared at each other, frozen. Finally, the father stood up, moving cautiously toward the door. "Who's there?" he called. For a moment, silence. Then, a voice, low and hollow, replied, "Shopify delivery. Open the door." the words stretched unnaturally, as though spoken from deep within a cavern. The children clutched their mother, trembling with both fear and excitement. The father hesitated, hand trembling above the lock. Finally, he swung the door open. Outside stood a man in a delivery uniform, but his skin was pale gray, his eyes completely black, and his smile stretched far too wide. He held a box in his hands. The family gasped and stumbled back in terror. The delivery boy, the family stood in stunned silence, staring at the box left behind. The father quickly shut the door, locking it with trembling hands. The package sat in the middle of the living room floor, ordinary in appearance, yet radiating unease. Its brown cardboard seemed darker than normal, edges damp as if soaked in something. The mother whispered, "We shouldn't open it." But curiosity gnawed at the children. What if it's real? What if everything is fine? They pleaded. The father paced nervously, debating. Finally, they gathered around the box, their reflections trembling in its glossy tape. The house grew unnaturally quiet. No sound of traffic outside, no hum of appliances, only their anxious breathing. Just as the father reached forward to peel the tape, the box shifted slightly on its own, as though something inside had moved. Everyone gasped, stumbling backward, their fear. The father's hand shook as he peeled away the tape. The box gave off a faint, foul odor, like damp soil mixed with rust. Slowly, the flaps opened, and the family leaned in, their eyes straining in the dim light. Inside, at first glance, was nothing but crumpled black paper. Relieved, yet unsettled, the mother exhaled sharply. But then the paper shifted, as though stirred by breath from within. A pale, skeletal hand darted out, snapping at the father's wrist before retreating back into the darkness of the box. He staggered backward with a cry, clutching his arm, though no wound appeared. The children screamed and pressed against their mother, who was frozen in terror. The box trembled violently on the floor, its sides bulging outward as if many things were pushing from inside, desperate to break free into the room. Before anyone could react, the box split apart with a deafening crack, its flaps flying open, as if torn by invisible claws. Black paper erupted into the air, swirling like ash caught in a storm. From the gaping hole, multiple pale, distorted faces pressed forward, eyes hollow, mouths twisted into silent screams. One by one, shadowy figures crawled out, their limbs jerking unnaturally, like broken puppets brought to life. The children shrieked and tried to run, but the door slammed shut on its own, trapping them inside. The mother clutched the youngest, sobbing, while the father grabbed a chair as if to defend them. The creatures didn't attack immediately. Instead, they spread out across the room, circling, their whispers echoing the same word over and over. Delivery, delivery. The family realized in horror that their order had finally arrived, just not in the way they imagined. The temperature in the flat dropped suddenly, their breaths turning visible in the air. The walls groaned as if the entire building strained under an invisible weight. The creatures slithered and crawled closer, their whispers rising into a chorus of mocking laughter. One figure leaned unnaturally toward the father, its hollow eyes locking onto him, its mouth stretching open far too wide as it hissed, "Thank you for your order." The father swung the chair wildly, but it passed through the creature as if it were smoke. The chair clattered to the floor, useless. The children cried out, hiding their faces, while the mother screamed for help, but her voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence pressing down on them. Shadows on the walls began to elongate, twisting into claw-like shapes, creeping closer until they seemed to reach for the family with intent. The father rushed to the door, yanking furiously at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The lock clicked and twisted on its own, as though invisible hands held it shut. Windows rattled violently, their curtains thrashing as if caught in a storm. But outside, there was only still, black night. The family was trapped. Behind them, the creatures now fully emerged, circling closer. One reached its hand toward the mother's face. Her skin chilled instantly, frosting over where the fingers grazed. She screamed, pulling the children back. Suddenly, every light in the flat went out, plunging them into total darkness. Only the faint glow from the torn package illuminated the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. From the shadows, dozens of whispering voices rose together, chanting in unison, "You signed for it. You ordered us." The sound grew louder until it rattled the walls themselves. The glow from the package intensified, spilling across the walls like liquid fire. From its depths, more creatures began to crawl out. 8, maybe 10 in total, each more grotesque than the last. Some dragged themselves on twisted limbs, while others slithered like shadows, their hollow eyes fixed on the family. The children sobbed uncontrollably, burying their faces in their mother's arms. The father, desperate, grabbed a kitchen knife. But as he lunged at one of the figures, the blade bent unnaturally, snapping in half. The creature only grinned wider, whispering, "No returns, no refunds," in a voice that echoed mockingly. Suddenly, all the ghosts moved together, herding the family into a corner of the room like prey. The walls pulsed as if alive, their paint bubbling and peeling, while the whispers rose into a deafening roar. The family realized too late. They had invited this horror in themselves. The creatures closed in, their whispers now distinct, each voice echoing a fragment of the same message: greed, curiosity, payment due. The father shielded his family with his arms, trembling but defiant. One ghost leaned forward, its face inches from his, skin stretched tight over its skull, eyes black and bottomless. "You ordered us," it hissed. "Now you belong to us." The walls shook violently. framed pictures crashing to the ground, glass splintering across the floor. The children screamed, clinging to their mother, while the father's knees buckled under the crushing cold that spread from the ghost's presence. Suddenly, every creature stopped, standing perfectly still. Their voices blended into one unified whisper. When you order again, remember what arrived tonight. With that, they raised their claw-like hands toward the ceiling. The lights blazed on for a split second, and then everything went black. When the darkness lifted, the family found themselves no longer in their apartment. The cozy walls, the furniture, even the windows had vanished. They stood in a vast, empty warehouse, stacked high with endless boxes, each identical to the one they had opened. Whispers echoed from every corner, rising into a chorus that rattled their bones. The father grabbed the mother's hand, holding the children close, but their footsteps echoed hollowly, as though on a floor that wasn't real. Suddenly, one of the boxes cracked open nearby, then another and another, revealing pale faces and twisted forms inside, waiting. A shadow loomed over them as the deep, distorted voice returned. Your delivery is complete. There is no escape. The family screamed as the creatures surged forward, swallowing them into the darkness. The last thing seen was the broken package, sitting quietly, its tape resealed as if untouched.